The age that followed is known by many names. Some call it the Age of Kings, but most historians, however, remember it by a different title. The Pantheon's Folly. Not because the gods were cruel, and not because they wished suffering upon the world, but because they had created a world filled with possibility, without fully understanding what possibility would become. The gods had created life. They had granted freedom. They had gifted their creations with curiosity, ambition, creativity, and will. But they had not created balance. They had not created consequence. And so the peoples of the world began to discover the darker aspects of their own nature. Curiosity became obsession. Competition became conflict. Possession became greed. Leadership, domination. And the desire to build became the desire to conquer. The world had been filled with life, and now it was learning what life would do with itself. The civilizations expanded, territories were claimed, and rulers sought greater influence. Cities competed for wealth and resources. Power became the most valuable commodity in the world, and many sought power for noble reasons, such as to protect their people, their homes, or prosperity. Others sought power simply because they desired it. And the more they acquired, the more they wished to possess. For nearly 400 years, the peoples of the world pushed the boundaries of what they could accomplish. Great achievements were made. Magnificent cities were built. Magic flourished. Knowledge expanded. But so too did warfare. So did ambition. And the belief that one individual might possess the right to rule over all others. The gods watched. The world changed, and what has begun as an age of prosperity has slowly transformed into an age of conflict. Many powerful figures rose during this time, kings and warlords, archmages and conquerors, and most are now forgotten, as history has little patience for those who fail. Yet among all those who sought power, one name would survive. One name would come to define the end of the age, and forever alter the shape of the world itself. And his name was Malakar. And his story marks the beginning of the end of the Pantheon's Folly. Even now, hundreds of years later, that name carries weight. History remembers Malakar as a tyrant, a conqueror, a mad wizard, a would-be god. History is not wrong, but it is incomplete. No child dreams of becoming a monster, and no child dreams of becoming the villain in another person's story. But to understand Malakar the Vengeful, you must first understand Malakar the Curious. Malakar was born during the height of the Pantheon's Folly, when humanity was still young and the world itself was finding its place. The races were still new and still learning to coexist, and Malakar, a young elf, would find his place in the world. His mother was a scholar, his father a respected leader among their people, and both believed knowledge was the greatest gift that one could give a child. They encouraged questions, curiosity, discovery. They wanted their son to understand the world. No one could have imagined how completely he would embrace that lesson. And from an early age, Malakar displayed a remarkable mind. He absorbed knowledge with alarming speed. Languages fascinated him. History fascinated him. And magic fascinated him most of all. His parents hired a tutor to guide his studies, a half-elven scholar who had spent decades wandering the world and collecting knowledge. And this man would become far more than a teacher. He would become Malakar's mentor, his friend, a second father. As together they studied ancient languages, Elvish, the runic scripts, Celestial, Abyssal, the secrets of forgotten civilizations, the mysteries of the Arcane weave. And it was here that the first seeds of Malakar's future were planted. You see, the tutor possessed a deep distrust of the gods. He questioned their motives. He questioned their absence, and why suffering continued despite divine power. To him, the gods had created life and then left it to fend for itself. And while he spoke of these things, Malakar listened and remembered. Years passed, and his talent became undeniable. By the time most mages were still learning basic spellcraft, Malakar was already manipulating the weave in ways that baffled his teachers. He learned faster, thought differently, saw patterns where others saw chaos. Some called him gifted. Others called him dangerous. Both would prove correct. And that is when tragedy struck. The attack came without warning, and even now history does not know who was responsible. The records all disagree and the stories conflict, but one truth remains, and that is that Malakar's parents died, and he could do nothing to stop it. I have lived long enough to know there are moments that divide a life into two halves, before and after. And for Malakar, this was one of those moments. Many who lose loved ones turn toward faith. Others turn toward family. Some turn toward despair. But Malakar turned towards power. Not for conquest, not yet. He simply never wished to feel helpless. If he had been stronger, perhaps he could have saved them. If he had known more, perhaps he could have stopped it. If he possessed greater power, perhaps things could be different. And the idea rooted itself deep within him. And from that day forward, every decision he made was driven by one belief. Power prevented suffering. Power would prevent loss and helplessness. And if enough power could be gathered, perhaps suffering itself could be conquered. Malakar moved into his tutor's care, and together they dedicated themselves entirely to the pursuit of knowledge. They traveled, studied, explored, collected lost tomes, recovered forgotten artifacts, and uncovered secrets buried beneath the ruins of older civilizations. Many stories from this period describe the pair almost fondly. Two scholars, endlessly chasing answers. Two friends convinced every mystery could be solved. And I confess, I have always preferred those stories. For decades they searched and learned. And then together they built something extraordinary. A great tower, a monument to knowledge itself. Its halls became filled with books gathered from every corner of the world. Its chambers housed magical experiments no one else could attempt, and its libraries contained secrets that kings would have killed to possess. From the summit of the tower, Malakar believed he could one day understand everything. And for a time, it seemed that he might. But knowledge inspires fear, especially among those who do not understand it. As Malakar's power grew, so too did the rumors surrounding him. And people feared what he was becoming. They feared what he might become. They feared a man who could bend reality itself to his will. The tutor tried to calm those fears, and he failed. And one day the surrounding communities acted. They captured the tutor, and they killed him. Many historians claim this was the moment Malakar became a monster. I disagree. Suffering alone does not create monsters. If it did, this world would be full of them. But suffering can convince a person that cruelty is justified. And that is far more dangerous. The loss of his parents had taught Malakar that powerlessness led to tragedy. The loss of his tutor taught him something worse, that people could not be trusted. It is also rumored that his cousin, an elvish maiden, had also lost her husband, a human wizard that had once attended studies with Malakar, and the three of them were close in their formative years. This loss drove his cousin into seclusion and hiding from the world, to the point where she was never heard from again. Malakar had vowed to learn the secrets to extend her husband's life, and once again stared helplessly into the face of death. From all of these tragedies moving forward, Malakar no longer sought knowledge to understand the world. He sought knowledge to control it. If people could not govern themselves wisely, he would govern them. If rulers could not act responsibly, he would replace them. And if the gods refused to intervene, then perhaps they were no better than the mortals beneath them. And perhaps they too deserved to be challenged. His transformation was gradual. The most dangerous transformations always are. He gathered followers, and then disciples, and those disciples turned into armies, and the Malakites spread across the world. They spoke of order, stability, security, and the cost of progress. Many genuinely believed Malakar would save the world. Perhaps he even believed it himself at first. But power changes people. Praise changes people. Devotion changes people. Soon his followers spoke of him as a living god, a visionary, a chosen ruler, a being destined to guide the world. And eventually, Malakar stopped correcting them, and his dominion expanded. Cities bent the knee, strongholds rose in his name, monuments were built to celebrate his greatness, and his laws became absolute. The punishments became legendary, and those who opposed him vanished. Any who mocked him suffered, and those who resisted became examples. And thus was born the name history remembers: Malakar the Vengeful. Yet despite all his power, one obstacle remained: the Stormclaw clan. Stormclaws have always been stubborn. That is perhaps the kindest way to describe them. They were warriors of the northern wilderness, hunters, explorers, survivors. A people forged by hardship and strengthened by community, and Malakar offered them wealth if they would only fight for him. And they refused. He offered them protection, and still they refused, and a place at his side, but they refused. And for the first time in many years, someone had told Malakar no. And war followed. Abominations emerged from his experiments, twisted creatures unlike anything the world had seen before. Some have even suggested the birth of a devil, whose sole purpose was to create creatures that were designed for conquest, for destruction, to break the Stormclaws. Yet the clan endured. Again and again they survived. And every victory against his creations made Malakar's hatred grow, until hatred became obsession, and obsession became vengeance. Eventually, a coalition would form of warriors, scholars, mages, these heroes that understood what Malakar had become. And they knew he had to be stopped. And together, they fought their way into the Great Tower. Upward through the halls of forbidden knowledge, past guardians and enchantments, and into the heart of his power, this small group trekked forward. And there, at the summit, they confronted the most powerful wizard to exist in history. The battle itself has been retold 1,000 different ways. Some claim dragons fought at their side, others claim that the gods intervened. I suspect that both are exaggerations, but the ending remains the same. Malakar was defeated. Not by an army or a kingdom, but by a handful of individuals who refused to surrender. And then, Malakar did something no one expected. He did not beg. He did not flee. And he did not seek mercy. Instead, he chose vengeance. One final act, one final declaration that if he could not possess the world, then the world would suffer for denying him. He spoke a curse so powerful that the land itself obeyed. He called to the Stormclaw clan, and he condemned them, that they will not die, they will endure. They will hunt what he has made, and they will break what he has already broken. And the wild will give them nothing but teeth. And then he tore the world apart. The ground split, mountains rose, volcanoes erupted, cities vanished under clouds of dust and debris, and ash darkened the skies. The reaction leveled some cities and buried others in the mountain ranges. 2 lava tubes came to the surface on the southern coast of this continent and the mountain range. These eruptions would form the Ashenfell area, as well as create 2 volcanic mountains, and the area would suffer heavy loss of life and force the continent into a state of panic, as the clouds from the eruption would disperse into the air in 2 directions and linger, blocking out sunlight causing a loss of life to all creatures and plants to the northwest of the volcanoes, creating the wastelands and deserts of what is now known as the Outlands. The second cloud would settle to the east in a valley area, filling the valley almost entirely. And from the soil mixture with the ash, a strange tree would grow. One that reacts with moisture and causes a thick smoke-like fog to come from them, in an area that would become known as the Mistwood. Entire coastlines would change, and the Stormclaw homeland was cast away into the frozen sea to the north. The gray wastes, a prison of ice. And at last, Malakar fell. His body died, but his hatred remained, and his spirit lingered. His followers scattered to the winds, and the world was forever changed. And far to the north, the Stormclaw clan found themselves alone, surrounded by snow, and surrounded by monsters. The consequences of one man's ambition. And generation after generation, they fight against the abominations that he created, against the horrors he unleashed, and the cold and despair, and the battles never end. The dead are buried beneath ice and stone, and children grow into warriors, and warriors become legends. And then legends became ancestors, and yet still they fight. And history remembers Malakar as a warning. But the tragedy of Malakar is not that he wished to rule the world. It's that he once wished to save it. And while the Stormclaws fight their endless wars in the frozen north, there lived among them a woman whose compassion would change the fate of every soul that would ever live. Theodorus. And her story begins where this one has ended.